I wanted to jump on real fast with 5 big takeaways from this game because I will be back later with a full-length review for the game, but I didn't know where to put these thoughts in that video, so I wanted to jump on real quick with these to get something out a little bit quicker than the full-length review, and here's where I want to start. This is quite obviously the best that the Kansas City Chiefs have looked all season. This was as close to dominant as we have seen for a couple years now from these Kansas City Chiefs. And all it took was losing their 2 starting wide receivers and their starting running back. It is strange how that works. That is one of the things that I had mentioned leading up to the game, is it seems like Patrick Mahomes sometimes gets a little bit of freedom from restriction. When his options are limited, he is able to better utilize them, it seems. So here are some of the key stats on a team level that are interesting to look at from this game, simply because, wow. Number one, the Kansas City Chiefs had 460 yards of offense. This is a stat that will come back in the review later today, but haven't seen 460 yards of offense in quite some time here in Kansas City. The Saints were held to just 220. That is a massive differential, more than doubling up your opponent. And it wasn't just total yards. 321 passing yards for the Kansas City Chiefs, though I think you could argue that possibly Derek Carr, I will always do that. Derek Carr had a better day because of his 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio versus Patrick Mahomes, 0 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, which seems to be a growing trend for the quarterback. Now 6 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on the season, but the Saints had only 174 yards passing. Now, looking at those numbers, 321 yards passing to 174 yards for the Saints, and when you start thinking about the totals, 460 yards for the Chiefs and 220 for the Saints, it becomes apparent very quickly where things went off the rails for the New Orleans Saints. The Kansas City Chiefs, led by Kareem Hunt, had 139 rushing yards, compared to just 46 for the New Orleans Saints. The Kansas City Chiefs had 28 first downs, doubling the 14 first downs that the Saints had. 80 total plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, though some of the snap counts say 84, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. There is a differential between the official NFL count and Nick Jacobs' count. 80 plays for the Kansas City Chiefs versus 51 for the Saints. A 39-minute, 56-second time of possession for the Chiefs, leaving only 20 minutes and 4 seconds for the Saints to have the ball. Utter domination, top to bottom, beginning to end, pillar to post for these Kansas City Chiefs. The most dominant win we have seen, that we've seen since the playoffs, but that we have seen in the regular season for quite a while now. The next thing I want to talk about, this was one of the themes of the what to watch video yesterday on the channel, so I would be remiss not to mention it now. The wide receiver snaps, targets, and stats are a thing of mystery. I want you to guess, just off the top of your head, what wide receiver played the most against the Saints. If you had to just guess based on what you saw, you would be wrong. It was Justin Watson, who had 59 snaps, 0 targets, an absolutely wild stat line. Second was Juju Smith-Schuster, tied with Xavier Worthy. Juju Smith-Schuster, 56 snaps. Xavier Worthy, 56 snaps. Juju with 8 targets. Xavier with 6 targets. Juju with 7 receptions. Xavier with 3 receptions. He seems to be capped at 3 receptions. No matter how many targets he gets, he can't catch more than 3 of those passes. Juju breaking out with 130 yards. I will have a little bit more on that stat in a second. Xavier with 25 yards, 24 or 25 yards. I see different numbers, different places. Also, 1 carry, 3 yards, and just another touchdown. The bruiser goal line running back, 165 pounds, Xavier Worthy. Also, with the best game we have seen from him in some time, 8 snaps for Mecole Hardman, but 4 targets, 4 receptions, and 33 yards. Sky Moore, 6 snaps, 0 targets. Mecole Hardman had a 77-yard game week 18 versus the Chargers, which was essentially a bye week for the Kansas City Chiefs last season. But before that, you have to go back to week 8 of 2022 before you can find a better game for Mecole Hardman than 4 targets, 4 receptions, and 33 yards. Quite a while there. But why stop with Mecole Hardman? Juju Smith-Schuster. Listen to this. Juju Smith-Schuster has not had a 130-yard day since December 9th, 2018. Let me say this again. Juju Smith-Schuster had his best game since December 9th, 2018. It's 2024. There are people going to prom. Is prom in the winter? I don't remember when prom is. There are people going to prom this year that the last time Juju Smith-Schuster had this type of game were in the 6th grade. There are people, could you go to prom as a junior in high school? That would mean that they were in the 5th grade, if I am not doing that math incorrectly. People going to prom this year haven't seen Juju Smith-Schuster have 130 yards receiving since the 5th grade. That was 2018 versus the Raiders with 130 yards exactly. It has been a long time coming for Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't know why I slur his name, Juju Smith-Schuster. I have spent the entire time the Kansas City Chiefs had reacquired Mr. Smith-Schuster saying, look, he doesn't have to be what he was in 2022. He doesn't have to be the guy that he was his penultimate season in Pittsburgh, an 829, I believe, yard per season guy. He doesn't have to do that. He's just got to be respectable here. Well, he had 130 yards in a single game for the first time in 6 years, so maybe he will be a little bit better than I had been giving him credit for. Xavier, I'm always going to call him Xavier as well, so I am trying. Xavier's season is an interesting one to this point. Obviously, I'll talk about this more, I think, tomorrow in the rookie recap video, a weekly feature here on the channel going through the game had by the rookies. But through 5 games, Xavier Worthy has 12 receptions, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a decent stat line. He also has 6 carries, 42 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Rushing. He is on pace for 41 receptions, 609 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's a decent season on its own. But rushing, he's on pace for 21 carries, 143 yards, and 7 touchdowns, which means he would have a total stat line if he keeps up this average, which we have to assume this average is going to increase. We have to assume that in the absence of Hollywood Brown, in the absence of Isaiah Pacheco, which is going to shift the focus of the offense, and ultimately in the absence of Rashee Rice, his snap counts, his workload is only going to improve. But as of right now, he is on pace for 752 total yards. That's a great rookie season. 14 touchdowns. That would be absolutely phenomenal. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. Part of what we've been doing with Xavier Worthy is comparing him to Marquez Valdes-Scantling because we kind of thought, especially once Hollywood went down, the MVS spot in the offense was going to be Xavier Worthy's. He's going to be that guy that draws coverage downfield. He's going to get that type of targets. He's going to run that type of routes. He's going to get those types of snap counts. Right now, 5 games into his rookie season, Xavier Worthy has 9 fewer receptions than Marquez Valdes-Scantling had all last season. He has 136 fewer yards than Marquez Valdes-Scantling had all last season. He is on pace to absolutely torch the season had by Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I believe, had 21 receptions for 315 yards last year. He is on pace, as we talked about earlier, 41 receptions, 609 yards. He is on pace to double the season had by MVS simply in receiving. He also adds another dimension. The number 3 thing to talk about here in coordination with this game, Kamara didn't. Alvin Kamara had 11 carries for 26 yards. That is a 2.4 yard average. And the Kansas City Chiefs barely missed a gang tackle in the backfield on Alvin Kamara on 1 down. And Felix Anudike-Uzomah barely missed another 3-4 yard loss type play, which would have meant that Alvin Kamara would have had about 11 carries for 15 yards or something like that. His next worst performance so far this season has been 77 yards with a 4.1 yard average and a touchdown versus the Falcons last week. This defense for the Kansas City Chiefs absolutely destroyed what was one of the hottest offenses in the NFL, and for the first 2 weeks of the season was absolutely the hottest offense in the NFL, was a team that looked like they were going to be one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl and win it. And the Chiefs, in order to shut down this offense, did not have to have sacks and takeaways to do so. This was straight up scheme and execution. Now, they had, I believe, 9 quarterback hits, but only came away with 1 sack. So they held Carr to 18 of 28 with 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He had a paltry 5.89 yards per attempt on the day. Absolutely mind-blowing performance from this defense, but not just the defense, because while Kamara didn't, Kareem did. Kareem Hunt is real. We talked about the Wayback Machine with Juju Smith-Schuster from 2018. Kareem Hunt looks at times like 2018 Kareem Hunt. I won't say 2017 Kareem Hunt. That cat was a different type. But he went 27 of 102 and a touchdown. Only a 3.8 yard average, but every one of those yards were with absolute authority. Absolutely authoritative running from Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt looks at times like a man among boys. He looks like a dad playing football with his sons in the backyard because your son's not pushing you backwards, and neither is that linebacker. Absolutely wild. He also added a catch for 15 yards. If Hunt rediscovers his receiving prowess, remember, Kareem Hunt out of the backfield was an absolute ridiculous cheat code during that 2018 season. If he rediscovers that receiving prowess, he hasn't looked bad receiving, but he hasn't looked like he did, right? Those wheel routes were absolutely devastating back then. If he rediscovers that, guys, it's a wrap. This Kansas City Chiefs team is without 3 of their top playmakers, and it doesn't matter. It just does not matter. It hasn't mattered one lick. And they looked the best they have if you add a dimension to this team, because P. Ryan added a catch for 24 yards as well. Now, those together are not statistically game-changing, right? Those 2 receptions, was it 39 yards, 40 yards? That's not something that's going to break the back of a defense. 2 receptions, 40 yards. What is going to break the back of a defense is knowing that you have to allocate resources to cover these running backs. And here's the big thing. So if you're using a linebacker to cover these guys, Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine, maybe they have the speed, right? Maybe they do. But you're also leaving a linebacker on the field that's going to have to creep closer to the line of scrimmage in order to cover Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine, leaving depths behind them for Travis Kelce to exploit. And that's what he does. Now, go ahead and take that linebacker off. Replace that linebacker with the safety. This Kansas City Chiefs team is going to dare you to do that. They ran a 4 tight end set last night. Now, okay, put that safety on the field. Put an extra safety on the field while the Chiefs are in 4 tight end, 1 running back splits. Because now the Chiefs have the midget of the tight end class, Noah Gray at 6'3", Travis Kelce 6'5", Jody Fortson 6'5", Jared Wiley 6'6". Your 5'10" safety on the field is going to stop somebody? Okay, maybe. Your 5'10", 198-pound safety is going to be a match for Samaje Perine and Kareem Hunt. They're both, what are they, 225 and 230? Is that correct on their weights? Go ahead, replace that linebacker with a safety. We dare you. And the last thing I want to talk about here is something that I have championed for a long time on this channel, and it is starting to look like I was correct, but I'm not meaning to brag about that. Jaylen Watson is cornerback number 2. Joshua Williams was the preseason prohibitive favorite for that position. He did not win the number 2 cornerback spot. He is currently playing only special teams and had only 38 snaps through 5 weeks of the season. So it is wild to see Jaylen Watson transcend to that number 2 cornerback spot.